sublimity is the echo of the great soul. For the elevation of mind, we have to nurture our souls to thoughts sublime and make them always pregnant, say with noble inspiration. So it is the echo of the spirit, echo of the great soul. So we have to nurture our souls with noble inspirations and keep our soul always pregnant with noble inspirations. So because it is coming from the inner soul of the author, and it is and the author or filmmaker or artist will be able to cause the same kind of emotion to come up also in the mind of the reader or in the mind of the viewer. And it is different from amplification. Amplification is a discourse which invests the subject with grandeur. Sublimity and this definition, however, would surely apply in equal measure to sublimity and passion and figurative language, since these two invest a discourse with certain degree of grandeur. But the point of distinction between sublimity and amplification, sublimation and amplification, is that sublimity consists in elevation, while amplification consists in multitude of details. So it is not about detailing a thing too much in order to amplify it, but it is about elevation of the soul, elevation of the mind. So that is the basic difference. So amplification is about giving too much detail, multitude of details will be given about certain things in order to make it prominent. But sublimation is, it's about elevating, it's about elevation of thought or language. And amplification is universally associated with certain magnitude and abundance. And another characteristic of sublimity is that sublimity raises the writers near to the majesty of God. So the power of sublimity raises the writers or artists close to the majesty of God. And they have a kind of immunity from errors or censure. It's a very simple thing to understand. In most of his writing, when there is a quality of sublime, it has an immunity from errors. Even if there is a small error, no one will consider it as serious. And nobody will be daring to censure what he writes. You understand? So it elevates the artist or writer to the majesty of God. You look at the entire literature written by Plato, Aristotle, Homer, you take any of them and you consider all of their writings. So there can be some errors or something that is not logical can be found sometimes. If someone were to pick all those literature together and if we find out some errors in their writing, the rest of their writing will be redeeming the failures which they have made. So maybe you look at Michelangelo, there are so many beautiful works from him, so many sculptures and paintings. But even if there was an error in his work, no one would consider that, because the rest of his works redeem what he did as what he has done as an error. May not be intentional or intentional. We don't consider what it is. Because Michelangelo did it, we agree with it. Because Da Vinci did this, we don't have any problem or critique about that. That kind of majesty they acquire through the simple touch of sublime, a single sublime and happy touch. And he writes like this: if one were to pick out and mass together the blunders of Homer, Demosthenes, Plato, and all the rest of the greatest writers, they would be found to be very small part, nigh an infinitesimal fraction of the triumphs which those heroes achieve on every hand. So whatever errors they have made, they will be only an infinitesimal part of the glory they have achieved in the rest of their writings. So sublimity raises the writers near to the majesty of God. When we consider Sublime, he also says that though his work is mainly focusing on literature and rhetorics, he says that it's a quality of greatness. It can be physical, it can be intellectual, it can be moral, spiritual, artistic or metaphysical. So the concept of the sublime, it can be applied in every realm. It is not limited to the realm of literature or rhetorics, but it can be applied in every other realm. It can be physical, it can be intellectual, it can be moral, it can be spiritual, artistic, it can be metaphysical. So it has a wider scope. So in philosophy, the sublime is a quality of greatness which can be physical, intellectual, moral, spiritual, artistic or metaphysical. And another quality of sublime is that it is immeasurable. It cannot be measured. It cannot be calculated. It cannot be imitated. You understand? When we agree with the mimetic theory of art, we are imitating. When we imitate something as it is, there is a kind of measurement applied there. So when you draw my hand, you have a proportion to what you proportion. When you draw it on a canvas, there has to be a proportion between the hand that is drawn there and hand which is actually here. So there is a kind of proportion and measurement. But when it comes to sublime, he says it cannot be measured. It is not measurable. It cannot be calculated. It cannot be imitated or measured. It has to come from within. Maybe it is a divine touch. It's a sublime touch. Something beyond all such all usual or general kinds of all general understanding about art or beauty. It goes beyond that.